What is your third
It
step?
seems like it makes sense.
Getting there though, so.
Asteroid field, and we cannot risk asteroids do not concern me after all. Just follow my directions.
He's done. He's not chasing violence.
I just did. Are you done?
Fourth floor.
Happy 4th of July, YouTube. This week I read Catherine House. I finished Catherine House, and I think I also might have started Catherine House. No, this is the third week I've talked about Catherine House. I finished Catherine House and I ended up giving it 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. Catherine House is about a girl who is in her early 20s and her name is Inez. During her senior year of high school, something happened to her, and she is going to Catherine House to escape. Catherine House is a college, a university that focuses on intense and rigorous study, especially of a new material called plasm. And the long and short of it is, plasm is the building block of the universe. It's everything. And Inez, honestly, the synopsis of this book, and also the synopsis that I just gave you, it's a little misleading. It's not meandering or slow. It covers 3 years and 300 pages, so it's not like it's a slow book. But it is dreamlike and emotional and a little bizarre. I feel like one of my favorite aspects of this book is how well it conveyed like the experience of going to college and all of the kind of like emotional like changes that you go through, and the crisis, especially when you're about to graduate, and that like you feel, and I think this is the most important part, like you feel when you're in college. And Elizabeth Thomas, who is of course the author of Catherine House, went to Yale. She's Ivy League educated, and I went to a good school and I was in a rigorous program of study, and I completed 3 majors in 2 years. So my last 3 years of college were similar to all of the 3 years of college in Catherine House, because I basically was in school for 3 years continuously, taking like a lot of credits and a lot of difficult classes. But you know, you get by. You're just like, one day you're a freshman and you like think you can't do it, and the next day you're a senior and you're like, I will die. Graduating is a death sentence, and it's really not a death sentence. And in fact, staying in college forever is much more of a death sentence. And this book communicates that like so good. I also this week decided that I am going to go full-time back to reading Star Wars. Other books can take a back fucking seat. And I read, to get this train rolling, I read the Thrawn comics, which are the adaptation of the Thrawn novel, which I have listened to twice on audiobook. And the first time, I don't think I got anything out of it. But the second time, I did get out like the plot line about Arinda Price, who is the governor of Lothal during during Star Wars Rebels. And remember, like, I think a lot of the books that take place like inside the Empire, a lot of the books and the stories that take place inside the Empire are really interesting, just for like a change of perspective, because like obviously the Empire is evil. but not every Imperial is evil. And to take two characters who we already know from Rebels, I know Thrawn from Rebels. Like, I'm not gonna like meditate on this. I know Thrawn from Rebels, and like getting to see him as like an Imperial, but he's the protagonist of the book. And then the like bad guy in Thrawn is like, he might be supporting Rebels, but like he feels like a regular antagonist. I just think it's kind of interesting. It's kind of an interesting exercise. I like the Thrawn books where Vader is in them because, you know, I'm Vader focused. Girl, I've got Anakin Skywalker on the brain. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. And I started a Darth Maul comic. I will put like a screenshot of which comic it is because I don't remember. And I'm on chapter 4 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So, that's pretty much it. That's literally not it. Sorry that I lied to you. I wanted to do the mid-year book freakout tag. Look at this. Look at what I have for you. It's a series of questions just to get a feel for the first half of the year, because it is July, the beginning of July, so it's time for the mid-year book freakout tag, and I am freaking the hell out. The first question is your favorite book of the year, and my favorite book of the year, I think, is probably a tie between Catherine Howes and Sourdough by Robin Sloan. I've now talked about both of these books at great length, and so I shall not spend any more time on it. My favorite sequel of the year was Return of the Thief by Megan Millen Turner. This is the sixth and final book in the Queen's Thief series, and it really brings everything to a head. And you know what? Eugenides doesn't even die in a volcano. Now, he might still die in a volcano sometime in the future, but the conflict does not end with him dying in a volcano. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year is the third and final book in the Dreamer trilogy, which is the second series in the Raven Cycle. I haven't read the second book, which is called Mr. Impossible, which is a goofy title, but I don't care. So for those of you who are not caught up on the Raven Cycle, including me, is like the Raven Cycle is a YA book series by Maggie Stiefvater about these friends who live in Western Virginia, and they are looking for a dead king. But it turns out one of their friends, my favorite character, Ronan, has crazy ass powers where he can pull shit out of his dreams. And so the second series of books, it's a trilogy, is about Ronan and his family and how he can pull shit out of his dreams. I read the first book, which is called Call Down the Hawk, and I fucking love that book. But I haven't been able to make myself read Call Down the Hawk. I didn't even give it the right title. Mr. Impossible yet. And it came out last November, and I think that the last book comes out in 2022, October 2022. So, pretty hype about it. I honestly, like, the reason at this point, I'll just wait. The reason I haven't read Mr. Impossible is because I want to reread the whole Raven Cycle before I read it. So now that I only have like 7 months to wait, I just at some point will have to start my Raven Cycle reread and like commit myself to that. Disappointment I had this year was One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I fucking hate this book. I shouldn't have been that surprised because this is an overtly political book, and it's a little immature in its politics, which is honestly the exact same complaint I had about the much more obviously political book, Red, White, and Royal Blue. I also don't think that Casey McQuiston is like a bad writer. My biggest complaint in most books is prose related and style related, which is, I understand, like a personal problem, but like I have a real problem when people don't use like good language in their books. Both of these books, One Last Stop and Red, White, and Royal Blue both come off like very immature for a lot of reasons, but One Last Stop is like fundamentally way more immature, and I I love the idea of like time travel, because you've got like a time travel romance, which is what One Last Stop is, but because you've got the conflict like built into the premise. Like you don't have to create additional conflict. The conflict is that one of them is displaced in time, and like, you know, you have to figure out how that affects your relationship. But it just like comes off like very juvenile and like annoying. Casey McQuiston did write a YA book, which I think is probably going to be a age group that suits her better, but personally I'm not going to read it. So I was disappointed because I while I didn't like Red, White, and Royal Blue, I thought Casey McQuiston had some good chops. Like she has some good prose chops, some good storytelling chops, and I thought like maybe Red, White, and Royal Blue is just not a book that is suited for me. You know what I mean? Like I don't love romance, and I don't like books that are just like pure escapism, honestly. So like Red, White, and Royal Blue probably wasn't ever not gonna do it for me, like in any universe. But there's a lot to complain about in One Last Stop, even more so, honestly, than in Red, White, and Royal Blue. But I'm not gonna get into it. The biggest surprise I read this year was Ninth House, which I lent to a friend and she completely forgot about, that is even in her room. I liked this book, which is why it's in the surprise column or answer. I'm gonna say I was surprised that I liked Ninth House, mostly because when I started reading Ninth House, which I read in January, I was like, this book sucks. That was like a very early opinion of mine, and I was glad to have discarded that opinion by the end. I think it's a fine little mystery novel. I mean, I know it sounds really condescending when I say it like that, but it is a very solid piece of fantasy mystery, and anything else it's trying to do, it fails spectacularly at. But otherwise, it's very good. There's this series of questions that I did not ever get around to answering. Favorite new or new to you author? So a debut or new to you author. One answer I could have for this question is Robin Sloan, who's not a debut author. Another answer to this question would be Elizabeth Thomas, who has written only the one book, but it didn't come out this year. And that would be Catherine House. She's the author of Catherine House. And I'm excited to see if she ever writes anything else. Sometimes people only have one novel in them. That's fine too. The next question would be new fictional crush. No, I've moved past this. I don't know. But I will say, I did watch the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and that's just reinvigorated my love, not for Obi-Wan Kenobi, I mean also for Obi-Wan Kenobi, but for Anakin Skywalker. He needs me. I'm Padme Amidala coded. A new favorite character? All these characters. I really like Lois from Sourdough, too. Like, she's fun. But none of these characters are like people I'm gonna think about all the time. The book that made me cry? No, this didn't happen. To be honest with you, this just simply didn't happen, which is crazy. But I will say, I watched the end of Turning Red this week. I think I watched the beginning of Turning Red in like the beginning of April, but I watched the end of Turning Red this week, and that shit made me sob, made me bawl. I am crying. Okay, you know what? Like, you just don't understand your parents when you're 14. She's 13. You don't understand your parents when you're 13. And sometimes it's very difficult to try and learn how to understand your parents even into your adulthood. Book that made me happy. No, also, I don't have emotions anymore. I'll tell you what. I am rereading Harry Potter, as I mentioned very briefly, multiple times. And it's making me unbelievably happy to be rereading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I just like forgot, to be completely honest. Now, let's get to the most important part of this tag. Books I have to get to. I have some like general fiction that I want to get to that I'm probably not going to get to because I've read like 16 books this year. And that's separating all of the Thrawn comics into 6 books. The Obelisk by N.K. Jemisin, which is the second book in the Shattered Broken Earth I think it's a trilogy. Broken Earth series. Season is the name of the first book. It is the sequel to the 5th season, and I really like the 5th season, so I'm excited to read the sequel. And I bought that in February. I bought the Scorpio Races. Sorry, I can't reach the obelisk. Gate, that's the name. I just think it's the obelisk. It's the obelisk gate. I bought the Scorpio Races because I was listening to it on audiobook and I want to finish it, and I don't do well with audiobooks, so I bought a paperback copy. I want to read the Raven Cycle so that I can fucking finish the series and maybe put it behind me, or maybe never put it behind me. Only time will tell. Piranesi, which I also can't reach, which is a book that I got from Book of the Month, but has gotten like only good reviews from people I follow on Goodreads. And I bought this book on ebook last year in 2021 for the Reading Women Challenge, which has been discontinued, which is fine because I wasn't going to do it anyway. But it's a translation of a Polish novel. I might be wrong about the country of origin. It might be a Ukrainian novel. And it's called The Museum of Abandoned Secrets by someone whose first name is Olga. And I don't remember what it's about, but I would like to read it because I want to clear out my Kindle like library. Not like actually get rid of these books, but just like have read a lot of them. I got like so many of them on sale, like for free or 99 cents. So there's a lot of bad titles in there. So I'd like to read some of the good ones. I also would like to get back into reading Star Wars. So I was looking at my Kindle library of Star Wars books, and these are the ones that I have on there. I have The Rise and Fall of Darth Vader. I have Jedi Trial, which is like an old Legends book, I think. The picture on it looks old. And Shatterpoint, which is labeled as essential Legends material, which is hysterical to me because anything that's labeled with Legends means that it's been retconned. And then I have a Phasma book, which I don't think I'm gonna like, but I don't think this has been made clear to anybody at all at any point. But when in 2020, in like May of 2020, I compiled a list of all of the Star Wars books, which is like both a simpler task and a more complicated task than you would think, because there is a list of all of the Star Wars books, but in that list there are comics and there are video games, and then there are junior novelizations that I don't want to read, and there's like 1,000 copies of like A New Hope. Like I don't want to read every version of A New Hope, you know what I mean? Like I know what happens in Star Wars, you know, like I don't need to read every novelization of A New Hope. So sorting through that was kind of like a arduous task. And then I was like, so I want to read all of the novelizations, which I've done. I've read all of the Star Wars novelizations, so all the movie novelizations. And then I want to read 20 books from Legends and 20 books from canon. So anything that was published before 2014, anything that's been published from 2014 till now. So I bought like a whole bunch of Star Wars books, and I bought some of them on ebook. Those are the ones I have on ebook. And then I bought a bunch of like paperback and hardback copies. And I did never read any of those books, weirdly. But I picked from like all different like eras of Star Wars. Like I picked from all over. I picked like books that were published in the 80s and the 90s from the Legends selection, but I also wanted to pick books that were during, not just like prequel books. But I didn't want to just read prequel books, which is not true because I do just want to read prequel books. But I wanted to really give myself a broad understanding of the old Star Wars canon without venturing too deeply into comics or video games. Like I'm not going to play a video game. I'll watch a video game playthrough, but they're like 3 hours long, and it's not fun. But I think it's interesting to like really look at what people were thinking about Star Wars across many different times and across many different like time periods in Star Wars. So I bought like for the canon books especially, like I bought books across like all different time periods. I got one of the High Republic books. This one's by Charles Soule. I think I read one of his other novels and I can't remember how I liked it. This says it's sharply written and intensely enjoyable by presumably Film Magazine. But I definitely read reviews for this, but I don't remember how people feel. And I want to read some more Shakespeare this year. Also, I want to read Macbeth is like a priority for me, which would be a reread. And I want to reread Hamlet because I just think it's important to keep Hamlet like on the brain, you know? Well, it is. So I haven't done any rereads this year. Harry Potter definitely is shaping up to be my favorite reread of 2022, but that's, obviously. And genre I've been loving / reading the most of. I want to read science fiction and I really enjoy it. I don't know. I was trying to look. I was trying to make some graphs. No, I didn't make any graphs. Yeah, it looks like science fiction is the books that I've been reading, picking the most out of, like next to like general fiction. So I guess that's all. So yeah, I've read, I don't know how many books. My graph is already wrong, but Catherine House, Sourdough, Return of the Thief. These are the highlights of 2022 so far. And the lowlights of 2022 so far are, One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I have another Kristen Hanna book on my shelf. This is like upsetting to me. And then Drawing Free, which is this like random ass, I don't know that I ever talked about this. I read this. This is exciting. I did start to read some of the like terrible ass books that I bought on Kindle in 2019. Bought like it was free to me, and I read this terrible book. That's really mean. But I read this terrible book called Drawing Free by Elena Adkin, and like at the end of the book, there's this author's note that I skimmed, and she was like, "This book took me 10 years to write. This is so important to me." I'm like, this is like a random ass like escape fantasy where instead I gave it 2 stars because instead of like leaving her husband for the mountain man, like she reconciles with him, which I thought was incredible. Like I genuinely am not being facetious. Like I legitimately am like, good for you. Like good for you for not being like, I just was like genuinely surprised, like, and he was so understanding. This book actually genuinely enrages me. Like every once in a while I think about it, but she is me. Like, well, I'm fucking crazy, but I'm not like crazy, but like, so she's just like, she has undiagnosed postpartum depression, and she like doesn't know why the hell she's like feels so depressed and overwhelmed in her life. And, well, she's a nightmare 5-year-old and a 14-year-old daughter. So I don't think you like need to be like clinically depressed to like find your life time consuming, like find your situation like a little overwhelming. Anyway, so she and her husband are having marital problems, and he doesn't know how to fix it because he's a man. But also like because he's not a fucking mind reader. And so it's like her birthday or something, and he gets her lingerie because he read women's magazines, and they were like, she will probably feel sexy if you like tell her she's sexy, and like you get her something to make her feel sexy. And so he gets her lingerie, and she's like, well, I don't feel sexy. And he's like, well, what do you put it on? And then you'll feel sexy because I think you're hot and I want to have sex with you, my wife. And she's like, no, I don't want to have sex because I'm ugly. And he's like, well, I don't think you're ugly though. And then she's like, well, you're not listening to me and I hate you. And then he's like, okay, I don't want to fight like every single time like I walk in the door. So like maybe we should consider either going to marriage counseling or getting a fucking divorce. And she's like, I can't believe he would say that to me. And then the next day when she's going to pick up her daughter from school or drop her daughter off from school, I think pick up her daughter from school, she just is like on the phone and stuck in traffic, and she's like, I can't go pick her up. And he's like, I'm literally in a fucking meeting. And she's like, but I can't go pick her up, I'm stuck in traffic, you need to go pick her up. And he's like, I'm in a meeting. So they're having this argument, and just in the middle of the argument, she's just like, fuck it, and she like goes to the mountains and she has sex with a 29-year-old mountain man. And then she reconnects with her mother, who she presumed was dead. Like, not presumed, assumed was dead because everybody told her that her mother was dead. And her brother, like, randomly re-enters the picture. And at the end, her 14-year-old daughter gets in a car accident. And the girl and her daughter's boyfriend dies in that car accident. But she's like, as long as my daughter is okay, I am going to learn how to appreciate, like, the things that I have in my life, including my husband, who I should not have cheated on. And I was like, something about it was like so genuine and like so good for me. I was like, yeah, you shouldn't have cheated on your husband. She wasn't like, I should have cheated. I was right to cheat on my husband because he's a bad husband. She was like, oh, my husband's actually been really understanding this entire time and I've been fucking crazy. So I shouldn't have cheated on him and we're going to reconcile our marriage. And I was like, okay. So that was a very rushed and harried even, mid-year book freak out tag. And that for real, that's it. So I will see you on Monday, and my AC turned back on and off and back on again in the span of this video. Bye.